Hello everybody! In today's video, we're going to be taking a detailed look at Bachmann's HO scale Salty from the Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends universe. Salty is a 6-wheel diesel shunter who works at the Brendam docks. Prior to arriving on Sodor, Salty worked on an unidentified coastal railroad. While working on this railroad, Salty accumulated many stories and learned many sea shanties. After arriving on Sodor, Salty was put to work at the Farquhar Quarry with Mavis, another diesel shunter, and Bill and Ben. Salty was unhappy working so far from the sea, but he persevered with hard work and was eventually rewarded by being transferred to the Brendam docks. Personality-wise, Salty is a very easygoing, patient, and happy character. He likes telling stories and singing his sea shanties. And he can also handle the trucks better than any other locomotive. Like all locomotives and rolling stock in the Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends universe, Salty is based on a real-life locomotive. He's based on the British Rails Class 07 diesel-electric locomotive. In terms of white notation, the BR Class 07 would be classified as an 060DE, the suffix DE standing for diesel-electric. The white notation is used primarily on steam locomotives, but can be applied to some non-steam locomotives like the BR Class 07 here. These locomotives are used primarily at the Southampton docks as shunters, which is probably why Salty is portrayed as a nautical-type character with a pirate-type voice in the Thomas the Tank Engine Friends universe. The BR Class 07 diesels were built in 1962 with 14 units being produced. They were withdrawn from service between 1973 and 1977. Out of 14 units produced, an impressive 7 units were preserved, and the remaining 7 were scrapped. One interesting note. In real life, Thomas the Tank Engine is an LB and SCR Class E2 steam locomotive that was built for shunting and short trips. The BR Class 07 diesel-electric locomotive was built as a replacement for the Class E2. So, Salty would have been built to replace Thomas. Thankfully, in the Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends universe, there's enough work to go around so Thomas and Salty can coexist without worrying about Thomas being replaced. Okay, let's take a detailed look at Salty, and we'll also take a look at some of the rolling stock Salty will be hauling during his run. Okay, so looking at Salty here, the most notable feature I think you'll see is this kind of off-center cab here. You'll see the cab is kind of pushed back to the kind of the last third of the body of the diesel. And you'll also notice here from the side, he's got this kind of caution pattern here in yellow and black, so that really stands out. Now, while Salty is described as red, he's really kind of a burnt orange or maybe an oxidized red, so he really looks used, it's just kind of a really good look. So the other part of the paint job here, besides this, we'll just call it red since that's what the literature says here, is that he also has this kind of two-tone thing going on here where that's also kind of caution looking there, that kind of diagonal striping there. There's the darker red of the main color, and then the striping is kind of a lighter red. And the other thing you'll note here is that his name, Salty, is in the rear of the rear of the body here, this like rear compartment there. And then he wears the number 2991. Okay, some other things you'll notice here is that the cab is a little bit bigger than the running platform here, so the cab is wider than the engine compartment here. You'll see that more, I think, from a three-quarter view or from a front view, maybe not so much from the side. And he's got a number of windows going around the cab, and these are just opaque, kind of gray plastic, so you can't really see into the cab. There are some other details here, like these silver painted hand railings here and some door hardware. And you've got these little grabs here, too, in the front of the running platform and in the rear. There's also this kind of piping here in the front and in the rear. I think you'll see those better from a three-quarter view. And the running platform there is gray, and you've got some step-ups here into the cab and into either end of the locomotive. And then you've got the exhaust stack there, and you'll see the roof here is kind of, again, typical curved roof. It's in black plastic. The whole construction is plastic. So there's a nice view from the side. Oh, and then he's an 060 here, so you'll see he's got no leading wheels, no trailing wheels, but he's got the the 6 drive wheels there. All right, let's give Salty a turn. As we bring him around here in the 3/4 view here, you'll see these pipings protruding here. Those are some kind of, guards or something like that in real life, I would imagine. But yeah, let's keep turning. All right, we're looking straight into the back of Salty here, and you can see again that yellow caution paint scheme there. I really like that on these diesel locomotives. It really gives you the feeling that these are really industrial shunters here, and they're probably working around a lot of people who have to be careful and know these things are running back and forth. So yeah, I really like the caution paint job aspect of these. And you can see the buffer beam again in that kind of caution yellow. You got the black buffer pads here, black utility hook, and then the hook and loop coupler there on the back. But here, yeah, you can see this nice piping here. I think that's a nice detail for these. And then you've got the rear windows here, the rear ports or whatever you want to call them. And again, kind of gray plastic there, just to give the illusion of windows. And you've got a top row of 3 here, and then you've got 2 on either side of that compartment there, that rear compartment. And then you can see also the little slight curve to the roof. All right, let's keep turning. All right, looking at this side of Salty here, this is identical to the opposite side, just obviously facing the other way. You got Salty's name here on the back and the 2991 locomotive number there. And then you can see these little compartments here with the hardware painted in silver. You can just barely notice them, but yeah, they're there, and there's some kind of louvered work here on these compartments going into the engine compartment. You've got a different type of door here, utility door. And then you've got some on the back here. So, yeah, nice detail. And then down here again, you've got your 6 drive wheels. And then you can see you've got your kind of your linkage here connecting all the wheels, main rods as they were. So, yeah. All right, let's give it another turn. Here on the 3/4 view, you can see the caution is kind of wrapped around the hood here, kind of thin, but yeah, still a nice detail there. And we'll continue around. And of course the money shot here, Salty's face. But before we get into that, you'll see just a couple of details here. You'll see that, again, that yellow buffer beam there, that kind of caution yellow. And again, the hook and loop coupler up front with the black buffer pads and the utility hook. And then looking straight into the cab, you'll see, again, the 3 windows on the front of the cab, and then those 2 windows on either side, kind of in the lower portion of the cab. And then this offset exhaust pipe there as well, or exhaust stack here. And then you can see, again, the curved roof. And you might be able to see the horns up there. You'll see them more from the top view, I think, but you might be able to catch those there on the top. And then as far as Salty's face goes, he's kind of a goofy looking character, I think. He's got the 2 buck teeth there with kind of a smirky smile. But he is good natured. He looks a little mischievous, but he's really not. He's a good natured guy. He's got bushy eyebrows up there, and then he's got the eyes. The eyes are kind of pointing off to the side, but as we've mentioned with all of these Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends Universe Bachmann HO scale, those eyes will traverse back and forth as he's going down the railroad. All right, let's bring it around full circle. And there's your completed turn of Salty. Let's take a look at the top and the bottom. All right, looking at Salty from the top here, this is obviously just a different angle here so that you can kind of see the details of you got the running platform here, and you've got, again, those silver painted holds there, hand holds. That's if you're climbing the ladder, you've got something to grab and kind of pull yourself up onto the running platform. And then you've got the 2 horns on the top of the roof there. And yeah, oh, there's some piping here on either side of the hoods, by the way. The rear hood and the front hood that I don't think I pointed out on the side views that you might be able to see. And then you can see that caution tape kind of wrapping over the top of the hoods in the front and in the back. And then you've got, again, the hook and loop couplers on either end of the locomotive. All right, let's take a look at the bottom. All right, not much going on under here as far as like real modeling detail, but again, we like to show them just so you can see. You got the engine casing here, or the engine compartment, and you've got some access screws there along the bottom. You've got some access screws across the back here and kind of up there on the bottom of the chassis there and in the front, in case you need to separate the chassis from the body. And you've got the typical Bachmann logoing down there, and then that white part number stamped in white. But yeah, just to give you a look at that. Hopefully you won't have to dig into the compartment, but if you do, you've got your access screws right there. And then the 6 drive wheels, the metal wheels there. Obviously metal for connectivity reasons, but there you go. And in case I didn't mention it earlier, Salty is about 5.5 inches long on the track. And let's give Salty one more spin. Salty, I think, is one of the more interesting looking engines, especially with that paint job. And, you know, the diesels are kind of fun. Most of the locomotives in the Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends universe are steam locomotives, so it's always fun to take a look at these small diesel shunters there. Just to me, they're very interesting to look at. All right, so that's Salty. Let's take a look at some of the rolling stock we'll be running with Salty today. Okay, before we move on to the rolling stock, just one last word about Salty. We've had our Salty for a few years, and he's since kind of gone out of circulation from his original availability. So he's actually going to, according to Train World, he's actually going to be re-released in June of 2024. This video here is being made in mid-May 2024. So a month from now, maybe, he'll be available through Train World. And when he is available, the price is advertised as $109.99. Okay, next up for the rolling stock are these one-plank wagons with a shipping crate. So there are 3 of these one-plank wagons with shipping crates available. And they all have a different crate on them from, a different company. And also they come in 3 different colors. So there's 3 available from Bachmann, so we have all 3, so let's just go right through them. So first up is this one plank crate with the Brendam Bay Shipping Company crate on top. So these go for $29.23 on Amazon right now. And like I said, there's 3 of them. They all go for the same price. So we'll just go through this first. So the first color scheme here on this one plank crate is the gray color. So this is going to be have gray walls all the way around, and then it has the shipping crate on it labeled Brendam Bay Shipping Company. So these are pretty interesting trucks. As you might know, the troublesome trucks and trucks like Scruffy are also, plank trucks. But those are typically 5 plank and 7 plank. And the plank number refers to the height of the wall in planks. And so the height of this wall is only 1 plank, hence the one plank wagon. So, basically a lot of the mechanics below here, like in the chassis and all that, are going to be pretty much the same as the troublesome trucks and Scruffy. There's going to be a lot of suspension work down here, detail, and there's going to be some brake mechanic work down here, brake mechanics, and all of it looks really cool. None of it moves or is functional, but it definitely looks really good as far as the detail goes. And then you can also see some hardware on the planking, some support hardware there, or bracing hardware, some corner hardware, which we'll see as we turn it. But these are pretty cool looking pieces of rolling stock. So why don't we give this a turn? And this rolling stock is about 4 inches long. As we go around, you can see here more bracing in the front of the the front of the plank there. And the chassis is black. It's all plastic construction, so the chassis is black, the body is gray. So the buffer beam and the buffer pads are all black. There's a utility hook there that's black, and then there's the hook and loop coupler there up front. And you can see the crate's got a lot of detail on all sides here. So it's kind of a beige plastic with the planks and the wood grain kind of molded into the plastic. So they look pretty cool. But yeah, let's continue to spin. And you can see that crate, again, labeled Brendan Bay Shipping Company. So the two sides are identical to each other and the two ends are identical, but just to give you a quick look. You can also separate the crate from the rolling stock itself, so that'll lift right out. All right. Okay, so let's take a look at the one plank truck, top and bottom. There's a look at the crate. Again, pretty good detail for the price point. It's a convincing looking crate there, and then here is the top of the truck, and you can see there's some planking detail down there in the bed of the floor of the truck. So that looks pretty good. And then from the bottom, again, you'll see that brake detail and some of the mechanics from the side. They look great, and again, they don't move. But yeah, I always like that detail. I think all these wagons look great as far as that goes. But on the bottom here, you've got the Bachmann logo stamped there, and then the part number in white, which is pretty typical. And then you've got screws for the couplers in case you need to replace those or take those apart for whatever reason. But yeah, just to give you a quick look. All right, let's move on to the next one plank wagon. All right, so moving on to the next one plank truck. This one is from the Brendan Cargo and Freight Company. So it's the exact same crate as the previous one, but it just has different logoing here on it. And the truck itself is identical, so we don't have to take a super detailed look at it, but I did want to show you this just for the color. So this one here has a red color scheme. And yeah, so let's give this a quick spin. Yeah, as I've probably made clear, hopefully, all of these trucks are exactly the same. They just have different company branding on them, and then they have different paint schemes. Again, this one is in red. The other cool detail here is that if we just take a quick look from the top, you'll see that in the bottom, the planks in the floor of the truck are still painted gray. So there's a nice contrast there. Only the wall plankings are painted red. And then another detail, by the way, on the flooring of these is that you can see these tie downs here. There's, I think, 4 on each side of the piece of rolling stock of the truck. They're just molded, again, non-functional, but it is kind of a nice visual detail. All right, let's move on to the third and final one plank truck. Okay, last up is the one plank truck for the Sodor Steamworks. So this truck here has a green theme to it, so you can see the planking is in green and the logoing on the crate is in green. And yeah, like I said, it says Sodor Steamworks, and then the logo looks like a smokestack of some sort. So yeah, pretty cool. So that's really nice. Again, 4 inches long, but let's give it a spin so you can see all angles. And there you go, the set of 3 one-plank trucks from Bachmann for the Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends universe, featuring the Sodor Steamworks, the Cargo and Freight Company, and the Brendam Bay Shipping Company. Okay, and next up is the Sodor Salt wagon. And you can buy this on Amazon right now for about $25.50. Not too bad. But yeah, this is a typical, wooden plank wagon here. And you can see the plank work kind of running down both sides of the door. You got a big door feature here, or main door feature. And then you've got lots of bracing here with some bolt work. And then you've got some graphics down here. It says Sodor Salt right on the door. And you got a lot of the door mechanics here kind of molded into the plastic. So pretty good detail. Obviously non-functioning, but definitely good detail stamped into the plastic. And then down here, typical to all of these kind of trucks and wagons, they have lots of great detail down here in the chassis with the suspension and the brake mechanics and all that. So yeah, definitely a good looking wagon here. Why don't we give it a turn? This wagon here is also about 4 inches long. There's a 3/4 view there. And yeah, looking at the back here, again, everything on the chassis is black, including the buffer beams and posts and pads, and the hook and loop coupler down here, and the utility hook that we see on these pretty regularly. You get lots of good bracing here. These 2 main braces kind of running down the inside of the back wall here, and then again that really wide corner bracing with 2 rows of bolt work or rivet work, and then some other kind of hardware accoutrements here as well. I think I can spit that out. And the one feature here that's different from a lot of these trucks is that this is an A-frame type of roof here. I don't know if that's the technical term, but normally with these trucks we see kind of a semi-curved roof, but this one here is a more angular roof here. And you won't see it until we look at the top, but there's also some gutter features running the length of the roof to shed water off of the guys or personnel working in those doors. But yeah, just to give you a look at the back here, let's give it another turn. All right, the opposite side of the wagon is identical to the other side that we were just looking at. Again, we've got some markings down here, and then we've got the Sodor Salt markings on the door there. So not a ton of detail, extra detail to get in here, but yeah, just to give you a look. And a look at the other back side here. Again, lots of nice brace work there. And we'll bring it around full circle. All right, let's take a look at the top and the bottom. All right, looking at the top here, probably in the glare of the light, you can see where the peak of that roof is, running right down the center of the rolling stock there, and then along each, like kind of on the lower roof, just above the doors, or just above the body of the plank of the car itself, you can see this curved gutter feature here. Again, sheds water off the workers. If it's raining out, they won't get rained on by the water running off the roof. So kind of a nice detail there. Yeah, let's take a look at the bottom. All right, so looking at the bottom here, again, we've mentioned this a bunch of times before reviewing this rolling stock. You've lots of like detail that's more appreciated from the side, because you're not really looking at the bottom of these things when they're running down the track. So not a lot of model detail, and by model detail I mean like features that would be on the real life version of these. It's just black plastic with the Bachmann logoing stamped into the bottom. Normally they're stamped just in the black plastic, but here you can see the Bachmann logo is painted on the bottom of this, and some of the other trademark information there on the right, and then the part number stamped along the bottom. And the wheels of this, although there's no need for electrical connectivity here, the wheels are metal. They sound great on the rails. So yeah, there's your view at the bottom. All right, and there is the Sodor Salt wagon. All right, and last up is the Live Lobsters Refrigerated Car. Now, being from New England, this car here is one of our favorites because one of our specialties or delicacies up here in New England are the Maine lobsters. So, yeah, so we really like this car quite a bit. Now, this car has been discontinued, although I think you can find them on secondary markets. As a matter of fact, I just looked on Amazon, and there's two available, and they're about $35 a piece. So, if you're interested in that, two available on Amazon, although I'm sure you can get them on places like eBay and maybe some other websites. But at any rate, yeah, so this car here is longer than the other four that we've just reviewed here. It's about 6 inches long, and it is actually uses the same mold, I believe, as the mail cars. So yeah, so be aware of that. But at any rate, probably the most striking feature here is just that it's a white car. I don't think there are all that many white cars in the Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends universe. And it's got the Live Lobster logos. There's 4, 2 on each side, so that the purpose of the car really stands out. And then you've got this little red stripe here along the bottom. It has 4 windows on each side, and those windows are not opaque. You can actually see right into the car from there. There's no detail in the car, but those are not like those opaque type of windows that we see on the locomotives a lot. And then you can see down here there's some various pieces of vent work down here. There's the doors here are kind of raised out. They've got some, they've got some depth to them, and there's some various bolt work features and things like that. And you get a little skirting down here, that little angular feature here, detail here, which is kind of nice. And then you've got the typical 2-axle trucks down here. You've got some suspension, you've got some bracing work down here on the bottom. So yeah. Okay, so why don't we give it a turn? All right, so looking from the back here, you can see it's got this curved roof here. It's not an even curved roof. It's kind of has a sharp curve on each side, kind of flattens out on the top a little bit different than those planked wagons that we see so many of. And then we've got some kind of vent work or exhaust work here on the back. And then you've got some vertical planking and some brace work, and there's lots of bolt work that's molded into the plastic, which is kind of a nice feature. So give you a second to take that in. And yeah, the chassis is black plastic, so we've got the black buffers and the hook and loop coupler back here with that utility hook. All right, let's bring it around to the other side. All right, so this side here is identical to the opposite side, so there's not a whole lot new to go through here. But just to give you a look here as we bring it around. So let's continue turning. And again, this end is pretty much the exact, is identical to the opposite end. All right, let's look at the top and the bottom. And the top roof here, you can see is just a smooth plastic top. It's in black. And then you can see here it's got 4 vents at the top. So I think this is, again, typical to the mail cars. I believe this uses the same mold. But yeah, just to give you a look at that. All right, let's take a look at the bottom. All right, so looking from the bottom here, you can see we've got the 2-axle trucks on either end. You've got some access screws here in case you need to do any repairs or anything like that. The bottom has the Bachmann logo stamping there and some of the copyright information, and then the part number in white stamped down there. So again, nothing too exciting down here. Metal wheels sound great on the track, as I've said many, many times. But yeah, just to give you a look at what the bottom looks like. All right, so there you have it. One of our favorites, the Live Lobsters Refrigerated Car. Alright, let's take Salty and the rolling stock out on the layout for a run.